Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So what we're hoping to achieve today is a show of solidarity for the three Singhs and their families, to understand that the Panth is with them. I think you guys already know the background of the case, why we're here, what they're being accused of, and who's kind of peddling the narrative on this case. These things are effectively being targeted because they expose atrocities by the Punjab police. Punjab police in certain cases butchered whole families. So we know the story of by Joga Singh Khanpur, whose whole family was butchered, by Gurwinder Singh Jatana, whose whole family was wiped out. These things took the Panth as their family, and we're here now to show that back, that the Panth is here back with them. That's what we're trying to achieve today. I mean, I think we had a conference a few weeks ago, and the families we've read out a letter, and they were overwhelmed, and they were really thankful for the support that the Panth has given. And we're thankful to the Panth, but Panth da farj banda. And one of the farj banda to support this case. This isn't just about three Singhs anymore. This is a Panth case, right? It's not about three individuals. This would set precedents for Sikh activism, especially in the UK and the UK Sikh diaspora in particular. It's particularly alarming to see like left-wing media not pick this up and kind of run with it, considering this is Priti Patel's doing, considering she's accepted an extradition request of a case that's already been solved and investigated by the West Midlands Police, considering she's accepted an extradition request last time, which was proven to have falsified documents, stopped witness tampering last time. So the UK government are already aware of that, and it's alarming to know that she's already even accepted this extradition request. The landscape is getting more and more difficult. There's no secret about that. Whether we know Juggy, who went to go get married and has been abducted, it's been over 4 years. Whether it's these three Singhs who've been documenting atrocities. The landscape is getting difficult. But Saad Sangji, we are a Panth of Chardi Kala. We've never backed down from anything. There was time where Sikhan de Serante Molle se gaye, right? There was a time when the Vadde Kalukara and the Shota Kalukara, that just being Sikh would get you executed. So this is the kind of cloth that we're cut from. We are a people of Chardi Kala. My message to those people would be: now is the time to do this more than ever. Now is the time to beat that drum as loud as possible. And to expose these atrocities and the wrongdoings of the UK government and the Indian government more than ever.
CPS have dropped the case on the West Midlands 3.
Reaction is, first we'd like to thank the Saad Sangat who's helped us so much throughout this whole thing. It shows, our petition was rejected 3 times. It's been live for probably about 10 days, I think maybe 2 weeks at max. It's got 12,000 signatures. There's petitions out there with hundreds and thousands of signatures. There's people that write to the MP way more than we do. So what do they have that we don't have? We have Maharaj, we have the Panth. The Panth is in Chardi Kalam. I was just talking to Paji, there's a saying about the Khalsa Panth, Khalsa hua khud khuda. That the Khalsa itself is God. Khalsa hua khud khuda, jis khub bhi khub khudaye. Aan na manne kise ki ek sache bin Padshah. Apart from Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, apart from Waheguru, there is no other asra, and there is no other asra. And the Panth is the Guru is the Panth, and we're always dendar to the Panth for this victory.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh Ji. Saad Sangat Ji, we're here outside the Westminster Magistrates Court. We've just heard the verdict that the case against the West Midlands 3 has been dropped. I'm here with Dabinderjit Singh Ji from the Sikh Federation. Bhai Sahib Ji, can you tell us what do you make of the verdict today, of everything that's happened today?
I think when we first heard that the 2-week hearing become a 2-day hearing, I remember talking to 2 of the Singhs and saying, can you ask your lawyers whether this is a positive sign or a negative sign? My own belief, be Maharaj apa vishwas rakhte, that this was a positive sign, because actually the 2-day hearing was about, did India have a case in the first place? The issue of extradition would have been secondary, and then all the human rights considerations would have come in. So at the second stage, we would have been victorious anyway. But what today's verdict has shown is India never had a case in the first place. And where this really, we can't leave it here. We've got to say, when Dominic Raab went to India in December 2020 to talk about trade, why was it that the next day Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, signed the extradition order, and a few days later their homes are raided? What the Home Secretary should have done is to say what new evidence has come up in the last decade in relation to that case 12 years ago. And therefore, this has wasted taxpayers' money, it's put the community in this position, it's put those individuals, their families and their children for 10 months through this. This should never have come to court. And we must campaign for either the Home Secretary to resign or admit she was wrong, because she's wasted not just community efforts, but she's also, another question has been raised, that she is already very close to the BJP government. And I think it's in our interest that as a community, and there are many conservative politicians that also don't like the way Priti Patel has carried out her role as the Home Secretary. And this is just one other example involving our community, involving our youth, that how she's put them through that. This is not something that should be happening in the UK.
I mean, indeed, we've even heard that some of the evidence that was presented was fabricated, such as the idea that these three Singhs were
clean-shaven,
and that they were born here in India and raised in India. So these are blatant lies that were being presented in court.
Very simple things. They were not in India in 2009 when this incident happened. Yeah. They were in their 20s. You know, this just made no sense. If it was investigated in 2010 by the British police who went to India, and two of the three were questioned at the time and told 6 months later, no case to answer. That was a decade ago. And that's what I was saying. Surely the Home Secretary should have said, what is the new evidence in these 10 years? And clearly, they fabricated that evidence. And you could say the Home Secretary didn't know it was fabricated. But the point is, these are basic things you must do before you have people arrested and put through this. It's no surprise to probably anyone here, any of the Sikhs here in India does this, because that's basically what they do. And therefore, there should be a higher hurdle when India presents evidence. And I think that is the other thing that Sikhs talk about, Sarbat Tapala. What will come out of this is India, there'll be a big question mark over what India presents to the UK government about Sikhs, whether it be through a court of law or generally about what we campaign for. And I'll finish on this note by you. You know, the Sikhs and the British have a very long history, and it's had ups and downs, and we've sacrificed our lives over 100 years for the British, for independence. We also fought against the British for independence. But the one thing that's been very clear from the last 12 months, whether it be the farmers' protests, whether it be the pandemic across the globe, Sikhs have come to the fore, and that concept of Sarbat Tapala has been there for everyone to see. And we need to use this as a stepping stone to say, look at us Sikhs and what we stand for. Every single Sikh I'm talking about. Don't demonize us. Don't demonize us because we're asking for our rights and we're campaigning, say, for independence. Because after all, it was a British Prime Minister, Clement Attlee, in 1947, who offered Sikhs their own homeland. So if the Prime Minister of this country can do it in 1947, what's wrong with Sikhs today, particularly British-born Sikhs like these three, campaigning on human rights and campaigning for their right to their own homeland? Because if we had that homeland, those very positives of Sarbat Tapala, the well-being of all, would be there for everyone to see. Because I just say to you, anyone listening to this who's a non-Sikh, ask yourself, do you know a Sikh? What is it about that Sikh you like? And they'll talk about honest, truthful, hard-working. And these are the traits of any Sikh, whether it be a Guru Sikh or even as someone who's on that path to Sikhi. They will say these things. Yeah, we have exceptions, but today is a massive victory for every single Sikh across the globe.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Bhai Sahib ji. Waheguru ji ka khalsa, Waheguru ji ki fateh. Waheguru ji ka khalsa, Waheguru ji ki fateh. So we're here with Shamsher Singh from the National Sikh Youth Federation at Westminster Magistrates Court. We've just heard the news that the case against the West Midlands 3 has been dropped. What's your initial reaction to it?
I'm so happy. It's difficult to put it into words. It's a massive victory for the Naujawan, massive victory for the Sangat in the UK.
Yeah. There's a lot of revelations that came out as well about a lot of fabricated evidence, a lot of lies that were told that the Indian government presented and the British government didn't question and actually allowed through as well. What do you make of that? Were you surprised by that?
Not surprised at all, actually. How blatant it was kind of a little bit surprising, that India thought that they could get away with outright lying, saying the three Singhs were born in India, that they were Indian nationals, that they were involved in all of these actions. I mean, it's absolutely blatant, and like we've heard from like the legal team that the judge was embarrassed, you know, with like some of the evidence that was submitted by India that they hastily withdrew, and the barrister gave it to them that said, look, you have to hear the evidence that they withdrew, look how ridiculous it is, like they're outright lying and fabricating. And this is normal in India, like, in Jaggi's case, they pressured Rampal, who was like a shoemaker. The NIA pressured him to become a fake witness so much that he jumped in a river and committed suicide. So they thought, that this could run over here and that nobody would really question it. But again, all the time they underestimate how much support there is for Panthak Naujawan in the UK.
Definitely, there's a huge turnout here today. There's been lots of sangat at the 55 gurdwaras across the country that signed petitions, wrote to their MPs, lots on social media. This case has generated lots and lots of support from the sangat, but it shouldn't have come to this, should it? It should have, this case was never a case to begin with. So while it's very encouraging to see that, it's a little bit disappointing that it took this to actually get this far.
Yeah, I see it as like a massive victory on so many levels, not just the case, but a victory for the Sangat's grassroots organizing. Like this case didn't have any mainstream media coverage, it didn't have any like major politicians backing it. All of the same rhetoric that we keep hearing of the politicians, the political lobbying, inviting the MPs to the Gurdwara. Now apparently we've got Sikh MPs. None of them like openly backed this case or pushed this case. I mean, the Sikh MPs that we have in the UK, they didn't even retweet the parliamentary petition. And that's like something that's part of their job, right? So we didn't see any mainstream media coverage. We didn't see any like major MPs backing it. It was just the overt support of the Sangat. It was the Sangat organizing across 60 Gurdwara. It was the Sangat organizing that, showed the British government through the mechanism of a parliamentary petition that within like 7-8 days got 12,000 signatures, forcing the government to give an official response. And that was all because of the Sangat. It was all happening because of social media organizing, because of all the Naujawan putting in efforts and organizing stalls at Gurdwara across the country. So this case should clearly show the perspective that NSYF and other Panthik Jathebandi have continually been pushing, that the power is in the hands of the Sangat, not in these organizations that claim to represent us, definitely not in the hands of the media or these politicians. It's all in the hands of the Sangat. What we've had here, continuous jobs. Sangat has gathered here today, done Chaupe Sahib, done Ardasa. How can those Ardasa go unanswered? As Guru de utte shak karde hain, like, are we looking to these politicians? We got Sikh police associations. They're supporting the West Midlands police, corrupt police officials that are part of fabricating, raiding our houses, fabricating evidence, working with India, not just today, but from like the 90s. There's statements in newspapers where when the Indian human rights violations were at their peak, at their pinnacle, the West Midlands police was working with the Punjab police and the Indian police at that time. So that's only increased. So for me, this is a victory on like so many different levels, and perhaps it might take a bit of time to process it, but this victory belongs at the feet of the Sangat, and it belongs in Guru's Darbar, not to any organization, not to any MP particularly.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Jagtar Singh Johal, he's been in prison in India for nearly 4 years, still no conviction. What's next? We've had one victory, we're looking to securing another victory. What's next for the Sikh activists?
So the difference between like here and in India, here they raided the Singh's houses, they brought them to the same court early in the morning, said you're going to be extradited, they put on a massive bail of £85,000 on every single Singh, which the Sangat, the Naujawan, raised within hours and had those things out. And then they set another date for the hearing, which was today. India has continually delayed Jaggi's hearing for 4 years, coming up to 4 years in November, because they know the day that this hearing is held properly, the same result's going to happen. The case is going to get dropped because there's nothing in the case. Till date, they haven't produced any evidence. They produced one rusty revolver and 2 motorbikes, which they haven't pursued. That's the only evidence that they have against Jaggi. Jaggi's lawyers continually saying there's no evidence. Take it to court, take it to court. Every single 165 trial delays. Sometimes the prosecution doesn't turn up. Sometimes the printer's not working. Sometimes the judge isn't there. Why do they keep delaying it? For this exact reason, because there's nothing in the case. 4 years they've delayed it. And Jaggi's case has been one of the most high profile cases we've had since like Rajoana, since the whole IPLH Orange movement. That case, as high profile as it's been, we've had Sikh MPs across the world supporting, Jaggi, we've got human rights organizations supporting, but there's been no movement on that. And that should show us who has power against India. India continually delays this because they're a nation, they're a state, they have power. They've massacred an entire generation. Not just Jaggi, hundreds of Naujawan are sitting in prison for years. The current elected Akal Takht Jathedar, Bhai Jagtar Singh Hawara, is sitting in prison. You know, they've murdered previous Jathedars of Akal Takht like Bhai Gurdev Singh Konke. This is a bloodthirsty machinery that isn't answerable to anybody. If that same case happened here, we'd see the same result.
Great. Well, thank you very much for sharing your views with us today, Shamsher Singh ji.
Thank you so much.
And congratulations on, to the whole Panth as well.
Thank you so much for coming down, and thank you so much for always being here and covering these and taking the message to the Sangat. I think it's so important, and we need more of our own media rather than relying, because as we've seen today, it's the Sangat that's turned up, and you've been to these protests, it's the same Sangat that keeps coming again and again, right? So who are we speaking to when we're trying to appeal to the Gore? Who do they care about us? I've never seen a Gora at any of these protests. I've been coming to protests since I was a kid. The UK media, when they cover us in the wrong way. You've seen it closer, right? So for me, it's let's speak to our Sangat.
Yeah, I mean, today we only saw the Press Association, which was formerly Associated Press. We didn't see anybody from the BBC. We saw some Indian media, and that's all. We didn't see any mainstream media here, nobody contacting us, and it just showed us that we're alone, but that's fine because the South Sangat doesn't need anybody. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਜੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਵੈਸਟਮਿੰਸਟਰ ਮੈਜਿਸਟ੍ਰੇਟ ਕੋਰਟ ਮਾਤਾ ਜੀ ਨਾਲ ਮਾਤਾ ਜੀ ਸੁਰਿੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਸੋਢੀ ਦੇ ਭੈਣ ਜੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਜੀ ਮਾਤਾ ਜੀ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤੇ ਵਧਾਈਆਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਮਨਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਹੁਣ ਹਨਾ
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਇਹ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਇਹ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਪੰਥ ਦੀ ਜਿੱਤ ਆ ਜੀ ਇਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਖਾਲਸੇ ਦੀ ਜਿੱਤ ਆ ਗੁਰੂ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੀ ਜਿੱਤ ਆ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜਿੱਤ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਗੁਰੂ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਹੱਥ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਖਾਲਸੇ ਦੇ ਏਕੇ ਨੇ ਜਿੱਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ ਸਾਡੀ ਇਹ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਇੱਕ ਨਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿੱਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਬੂਤ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਦੇਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਕਿ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਪੰਥ ਇੱਕ ਛੱਤ ਥੱਲੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆ ਉਹ ਦਿਖਾ
ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਜੀ
ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹੋ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਬਸ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖੀ ਤੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਮੋਰੇ ਕੁਛ ਵੀ ਕਾਰਜ ਕਰਨਾ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰੋ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਬਾਂਹ ਫੜਦੇ ਆ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰੋ ਸੱਚੇ ਮਨੋਂ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰੋ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਖੜੇ ਆ ਯਾਦ ਕਰੋ ਉਹ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਆ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਵੀ ਜੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਚੱਲੇ ਤਾਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਨੇ ਜਿੱਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਿੱਤ ਸਕਦੇ ਸੀ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਬਣਾਏ ਹੋਏ ਸੀ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੀ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਨੇ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਤੇ ਝੂਠ ਥੋਪਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਅੱਜ ਤੱਕ ਇਹ ਅੱਜ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੋਚ ਤੇ ਪਹਿਰਾ ਦਿਓ ਗੁਰੂ ਸੰਤ ਜਰਨੈਲ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਭਿੰਡਰਾਂ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਅੱਜ ਇਹ ਸੋਚ ਤੇ ਪਹਿਰਾ ਦੇਣ ਦਾ ਹੀ ਨਤੀਜਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵੀ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਅੱਜ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸੋਚ ਤੇ ਪਹਿਰਾ ਦੇਣ ਲਈ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਉਹਦੀ ਜਿੱਤ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਸਾਡੀ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਪੰਥ ਦੀ ਜਿੱਤ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਖਾਲਸੇ ਦੀ ਜਿੱਤ ਹੋਈ ਆ
ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਮਾਤਾ ਜੀ
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਜੀ